everyone, welcome to another coffee tasting. I'm your host Aaron Taylor, and we have a special guest today, Gavin. Today we're going to be tasting Gavin's favorite coffee, and it's one of my favorite core coffees as well. It's the Blonde Espresso. This is a really interesting coffee because it's a blend of 3 different coffees, and I didn't know that until I did some research. So we're going to talk about the 3 different blends that come in the Blonde Espresso and what really gives it those flavor notes. If you guys are joining me for the first time, welcome. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button down below. And if you guys are joining me for another coffee tasting, welcome back. And welcome Gavin to our coffee tasting today.
I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
It's super awesome to have a host or a guest host and really learn like their passion of coffee, what their favorite coffee is, and then just to like maybe I can share with you a little bit about your favorite coffee that maybe you didn't know.
Yeah.
So that's going to be the cool part about this coffee tasting.
So what do we have going on here?
So,
like, what is that brewing method?
So we on this channel we brew our coffee 2 different ways. We do it on a French press and a pour over.
Okay.
And the reason why we do the French press and the pour over is because we're going to taste the different flavor notes that you get from different brew methods, but from the same cup of coffee.
Yeah.
So when you get like a dark roast and you brew it on a pour over, you're gonna get a lot lighter notes than you would if you were to get that French press, because you're getting more sediments and more oils in that French press, making it a darker cup of coffee.
Okay.
So like through my experience of doing my coffee tastings for the past couple months, I've actually learned that when I do Latin American coffees, I typically lean towards the French press, because it brings out more of those darker milk chocolate notes in the Latin American coffee.
Yeah.
And then when I get more towards like Ethiopia and Southeast Asia, I kind of lean more towards the pour over, and that's the reason why is because those coffees typically have more intense flavor notes, whether it be acidic notes or earthy bitter notes.
Yeah.
And so with the pour over, we're kind of dying down some of those bitter notes or acidic notes by catching some of those oils or sediments in the paper filter.
Like, I love Sumatra and Komodo Dragon, but like they're so strong sometimes. And, and I'll brew it at home on my coffee pot, and it's like a percolator, and it's just too intense. I can't even add cream to it to change the flavor, really.
Absolutely.
So that sounds great. So like, try it on this.
Last week we did the Italian roast with Junil, and so this was a learning experience for myself, because I thought that because of being a dark roast, I would prefer it on the paper filter, because it would die down some of those intense flavors of a dark roast. But with the pour over, we saw a lot more of those acidic flavors, because the bitter flavors really took a back seat and really brought forward those bright citrusy flavors, and I didn't like that. And so with the French press on Italian roast, it actually ended up being a very balanced dark cup of coffee. Okay. So I actually ended up liking the French press on the Italian roast versus the pour over. And it's funny because I don't like Italian roast at all normally, because it's too dark for me. But I actually kind of enjoyed it on the French press. So I mean,
I think of like a muddy texture when I think of Italian roast.
Right, exactly.
It's so rich.
It's so rich, and with that, especially on a French press, because you do get that like that sediment mud at the bottom of your cup that really impacts the flavor.
Now this, I smelt it, and it already, this is what I drink at home, Blonde Espresso, and already just smelling it like here, it smells like there's so much more body and sweetness in it.
Okay, yeah. And so that sweetness is actually those citrus flavors coming through. And so that's what's really giving us that like sweet scent and flavor.
That's exciting.
Yeah. And the reason why we're getting that is because the paper filter is kind of filtering out some of those bitter flavors and letting more of those citrus flavors from the Ethiopia come through. And if I didn't tell you guys, this coffee, the Blonde Espresso, is a blend between Ethiopia, Nicaragua, and Guatemala. And then because these regions are so large, they're actually able to selectively choose the regions of these countries that they crop from to make it available all year round. And so like, if it's Blonde Espresso during the winter time, you're probably drinking the Ethiopia that's in that particular Blonde Espresso is going to be from the southern side of Ethiopia. Well, more towards the summertime, if it's cropped during that summertime, it's going to be more towards the northern hemisphere, or more towards the northern side of Ethiopia. And they're able to do that because these countries are so large that they have multiple crop periods depending on the location within the country. And so that's why they're able to easily make this blonde espresso so widely available.
Wow.
Or not widely available, but available year long.
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
That's great.
So that's an interesting fact.
Yeah, whenever I go into another store and I go to like pick up my markout for blonde espresso and they don't have it, I end up getting Veranda, and it's just not the same.
It's
just not the same. It's good, but it's just not the same. It's not as rich.
So the richness is coming from that roasty espresso flavor that you get. Yeah, so that's where that's coming from, and then you get those rich flavors from those 2 Latin American blends too, because the Latin American blends are going to give you like those notes of like milk chocolate.
Oh, my favorite.
And so
my favorite.
Yeah, that's typically what I look for when I do drink black coffee. Is I look for those milk chocolate notes with like a caramely sweetness or like a roasty sweetness.
Yes.
That way you're getting those nice smooth bitters at first, but then you're getting a little bit of a clear palate afterwards from that sweetness.
Oh, it's so pretty. I did not know that there were 3 different coffees in the blonde espresso.
Yeah, so
that's awesome.
This isn't just a learning experience for the viewers here, but it's a learning experience for myself as well when I do my research and look up these coffees, because I thought that the blonde espresso was just a straight up Latin American blend. But I learned that there is 2 Latin American coffees and then a African coffee, and those Latin American coffees are what gives it its smooth milk chocolate notes, and then the Ethiopia is going to give it like a bright sweet berry notes, but it's going to be primarily those milk chocolate smooth note that we're going to see.
Oh, fantastic.
Alright, so let's go ahead and sniff our coffee. Ooh, that smells really good. So with the pour over, we're getting a lot of those sweet flavors right off the bat. And then you get like a undertone of those bitters, but it's going to be primarily that sweet flavor. It's almost like a caramely sweetness.
That's amazing.
Alright, so now we're going to go and sip the coffee, and when we sip the coffee, we're going to get it all over the palate of our tongue to get all those flavors. That is really good. So with the flavors that we're getting with this coffee, we're getting like a little bit of those bright acidic flavors on the sides of our tongue, and then we're getting a little bit of a bitterness as well towards the center.
Like a lemon almost.
And exactly. And then it's interesting because like that bright acidic flavor is almost on the borderline of where you taste that citrus flavor and where it almost hits the bitter part of your tongue. Like it just sits there.
That's interesting. That's really
and then,
good.
As the palate clears and we like let the taste linger away, we're getting bitter notes, and those bitter notes are those milk chocolate notes that you get from the Latin American coffee. So we get that initial citric punch from that Ethiopia blend, and then we're getting that smooth mellowness from the Latin American milk chocolate notes.
Like, you ever walk through or been around like a bunch of lemon trees and you just can smell like the citrus on the leaves itself? It's neat, because like at first I get that, and then I get like this smooth undertone of like a milk chocolate afterwards.
Absolutely. It's
so complex. I had no idea like it could be that that bold.
Well, and then just analyzing the coffee too, as you sip it, it's interesting to learn the different flavor notes that you're getting, because especially when you start to go from different coffee to different coffee, and then you really start to experience the different flavors, because they're really not there when you just drinking like one cup and you don't really know it's just coffee. But once you start to explore the different flavors, you really start to experience like, wow, that does have like almost like a melted M&M flavor to it.
Yeah. Now, like so at home I use just a regular coffee pot and a like 10-cup brewer.
Yeah.
And then I do like 10 tablespoons for like a whole thing.
Yeah.
And because that's what the instructions say to, but like it's always really, really strong. Like, how do I get it to taste like this? Obviously using less, right? But or is it just the brewing method?
You could brew at a smaller quantity, say like do like a half batch.
Okay.
Because with the thing when you brew a 10 cup or anything like a mass brew type of coffee, your initial brew is going to be very, very strong, and then depending on how the basket works, whether or not you're getting full immersion of the coffee.
Yeah.
The flavors that you're getting towards the end of the brew, because you're going through so much water, it might not be as consistent as it should be.
Okay.
So having like a more refined, like one cup brew, we're making sure that we're getting the exact amount of grinds and the exact amount of water. Because with the basket, you never know if when it's in the brewer, you don't know if the water is actually getting the coffee like fully immersing the coffee like during the second half of the brew, because it might be just dripping into the center and bypassing most of the grinds. And so I brew on a full brewer too, and it definitely seems weaker.
Yeah.
And I tend to actually do like an extra scoop of coffee, but that's not the best either.
Yeah.
Because you could end up overflowing your basket. It might impact the flavor too much. So yeah, it's hard. It's hard to get that same quality brew in say in our drip brewer.
Yeah.
It's just
it's a flat bottom. So like I noticed because I have a cone at home, and so I'll put it in and it'll be one level, and then like when I come to dump the wet grounds, they've expanded and it's almost to the very top of the filter, and but yet like there's like a hole straight in the middle.
Yeah.
Right?
So that's probably what's happening is towards the late of the brew, a lot of the grinds get pushed towards the side, and then it's just it's really just
water.
It's water brewing with maybe now 20 grams of espresso beans versus with the 56 or whatever you're supposed to be brewing with.
So stray away from cone filters.
Yeah. Well, and then that's why
preference, I guess.
With the brewing method, when you're doing a paper filter, I don't know if you noticed as well, is when you do it, you want to let it breathe. There's a specific term to it where you let the
blooming.
Yeah,
almost,
blooming.
Right?
There you go. You let it bloom.
Yeah.
You let the trapped air inside the grinds to come out.
I love that.
And so when you don't let the air come out, if you don't let it bloom, that air gets trapped at the bottom of the cone, and so the water starts to get trapped on top of the air, and that's what causes a super long brew.
Okay.
And then if you get a super long brew, then you're gonna get a super bitter cup of coffee.
And cold.
And cold, exactly.
That's what I run into, and maybe that's because I'm not allowing
So letting your coffee bloom when you're brewing a pour over is very important, not just for time convenience, but also making sure that the flavors that you're getting are proper, because that water sitting on top of the coffee too long can impact the flavor in a negative way. We are going to serve ourselves some French press if you want to dump your coffee or chug it.
I don't want to waste coffee.
Exactly, especially blonde espresso quality.
I'm surprised. So how long do we let that sit? I'm so used to...
So 5 minutes we're going to do the French press.
Okay.
We probably let it brew a little bit longer than 5 minutes, maybe 6 minutes.
That's all right.
But I did plunge it while we were talking.
Wow, look at that. It's so light still.
Right? And then what's interesting too is we're
beautiful.
We're getting that crema on the French press too.
Yeah.
Right here that you would normally see in in an espresso.
Yeah.
And so we're getting that full body texture.
I'm telling you though, I'll be honest, the other one was darker, so I'm kind of wondering. I'm curious, but
so this might bring out more of we're gonna see more complex flavors, because we're gonna get more citrus flavors and more bitters.
Wow.
But that citrus flavors, because it's gonna be really hot right now, it's gonna be very, very bright.
Oh, that smells so good. It smells better than the pour over. Yeah.
It smells very bright.
Yeah, I could tell with this, I probably won't ever even want to put creamer in it. That's crazy.
Oh wow.
Oh my god, it's so smooth.
I was gonna say the same thing. It's literally super smooth.
Oh my god, there's no bite, but I still taste the citrus.
It's got that citrus flavor.
Yeah.
But what's happening right now is, because before with the pour over, we could actually really taste those citrus flavors, because it was that first thing that impacted our tongue right off the bat.
It was almost overpowering a little bit.
Exactly.
But still good.
But it wasn't over. It took, what I like to say is, it takes the front seat of the cup.
Oh,
so
that's good.
Because if it's overpowering, then it's negative.
No, because it did change. It did change.
In the pour over, the acidic flavors really drive the cup of coffee.
Got you.
Well, this one, it's nice, because the French press on the blonde espresso, it's almost like they're one's a co-pilot and the other one's a pilot,
Gotcha.
where they both have control of the cup of coffee, and that's why we're seeing that balance. Because if the bitter flavors if the citric flavors took the back seat, we would be really seeing those bitter flavors up front and really getting that impact of the bitters, and then those citric flavors would be kind of like really, really undertoned. But because it's such a balanced cup of coffee, we're getting that smooth flavor.
Getting everything. It's not even.
And
so,
then
so it's like a backseat driver. I get called that a lot. That's amazing.
This is really nice. Another thing I really like about the blonde espresso is it doesn't. There's no lingering effects.
I want some more.
Absolutely, help yourself.
That's amazing.
So it leaves you with a very clean palate. You don't need to pair it with any food items. You don't need to add milk or cream or sugar.
Yeah.
It's got a really nice, clean mouthfeel. So one of the things that I look for in coffee as well when I like to drink my black coffee is what are the flavors that you get afterwards. And some coffees have a really long-lasting impact on your tongue after you've drinking your coffee and you've let the palate clear. This one we're not seeing a whole lot. We after I've let it go away for a little bit, I do get a little bit of dryness, but it might be just because it's hot outside.
I'm getting like floral notes, like
and those floral notes are going to cause that dry mouth feeling, and it's almost like wine.
Yeah.
So it's to combat that feeling in the dry mouth feeling in your mouth. You want like something savory, like something salty, something that would go really well with this cup of coffee. A butter croissant. What I was thinking is maybe like the Creminelli's salami tray. So then you get like that salty salami.
That's interesting.
With the
I would have
cheese.
never thought of that.
Yeah,
That's great though.
So something savory. So this would be like a great brunch coffee, like something you have like
it's good coffee. You can tell
halfway to dinner, and you're drinking coffee, but you need something a little bit of savory, but you don't want to ruin dinner. So you have a little bit of salami and cheese with some coffee. It's really good.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, I can keep drinking it.
Yes.
So it's crazy. Like I'll make a French press sometimes, and I just have one of those metal ones, those big ones. You can't really see inside of it, and I'll boil water, and then I just use the scoops that came with the French press itself that I got here from work, and then and for a while I was doing like a French press in the morning and then brewing also the 10 cup because my roommate he and I both drink coffee before work. I wake up and I would make this thing and I would be drinking that, but it would have so much like a resiny texture to the whole thing from the first cup down, and I kind of like I didn't like that because it made me feel nauseous, and I had to put a lot of creamer in it so I could drink it. Whereas,
and that's in your 10 cup brewer?
No, that's in the French press I was using. That's because I was doing it wrong. Because like this here, like I thought like the darker the color of the coffee, the more balanced it would be. But the reality is what I'm finding here is the lighter the coffee, the easier it is to process.
What were you doing wrong about were you doing too much grinds? Was it too fine?
Probably too fine. Probably too fine, I think. Or too too fine. Because for a while I was trying to grind it at home. Okay. And
got it. No, that's I actually.
So it wasn't coarse enough.
I tried to grind at home, and that's a hard thing, especially when you have those like pulse
It's just
grinders.
a little thing. It was ridiculous.
And you have to like go by sight.
Yeah.
It's not well. And then so what's happening is when you do too fine, is we have more surface area on the grinds.
Okay.
And when you have more surface area, you're getting more of those tannin flavors coming through. And so you're over brewing. Yeah. And then when you get finer on the coffee, you're also releasing more sediments. Yeah. And so a lot of people, and if this is for you guys too, if you guys get an upset stomach from drinking coffee, and if it's like a French press, or even just from a regular pour over, it might be from the brew process or the particular blend that you're drinking. So you might have gotten nauseous because of an overwhelming amount of sediments. And so like, because that can mess with your stomach. Yeah. And so a lot of people will stray away from the French press because those sediments can upset your stomach if you're sensitive to it. And then also there's a lot more oils in a French press than on a pour over.
Oil, it's good for you, right? The oils?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
but too much is not good.
Well, and then depending on the person too, because some people are sensitive to those oils.
Yeah.
So you want to be careful on like that. And then if you are sensitive to like the sediment and the oils in the coffee, you need to tone back the coffee back a little bit, the
Yeah.
Chemex is really good.
Yeah.
Because you're getting very little sediment and very little oils, but
That's
you're still
like that
getting
triple
that
filtered thing, right?
Yeah, and that's the reason why is because it's a triple filtered paper filter. So you're capturing more of those oils and more of those sediments, and so you're getting a smoother cup of coffee, but it's still flavorful. I really like the Chemex, but I don't really brew that much because I look for more flavor in my cup.
Okay.
So I like the sediment.
Yeah.
I'm a pulp guy.
Yeah, I gotten accustomed to like that resiny flavor. And I guess I built up a tolerance for it.
Okay.
I also know like to drink it slower and to keep adding hot water if I need to, but like that's not how we do it, right? Like why go through all that work just to have a cup of coffee? But this, like, I just love it. I love it.
No, that's a perfect example of like what we believe here too, or just anyone should be doing too if they're a coffee fan. Is proportion, grind, and freshness.
Yeah.
And so like making sure that the grind is proper for a paper filter. And then what's really interesting is each grind or each brew process gets a different amount of grinds too. And so like a lot of people say like, oh, the French press has more caffeine because you have 56 grams versus 30 grams, and that's not necessarily true because we actually have more cups of coffee in here versus the
this was strong, but like this is like balanced. Like I don't need any cream with this.
Exactly.
I'm still drinking it. Like that's crazy. Like typically I want some vanilla, some hazelnut, or some white mocha in there just to like change the flavor. But like I like this. I feel caffeinated.
That's right. Yes. And well, then what's nice too is it's a really nice smooth flavor. And so now we're going to talk a little bit about the this particular blend of coffee. And so something that I didn't know until I researched it was the blonde espresso is actually consists of 3 different blends, and those blends are Ethiopia, Nicaragua, and Guatemala. And so with those bright citric flavors that we're getting, that's going to be from those Ethiopia beans. And that's because typically in that region they like to sun dry their beans, and when they sun dry the beans, the cherries on the beans turn into pretty much raisins, and what happens is the moisture inside the cherry gets absorbed into the bean, so that's why we see those bright citrusy flavors. Now in Latin America, they don't have the option to sun dry in most areas because they don't have the right the right kind of air to sun dry.
It's probably super humid, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. So the humidity in the air doesn't allow them to sun dry. So if they were to try and sun dry on beds in most parts of Latin America, they would actually end up with moldy cherries because it just doesn't work. And so that's actually why they do a semi-wash, or no, a fully wash in Latin America. And so with the full wash, we're getting less of those citric flavors and more of those like bourbon flavors with like those chocolate bitters. And so that's why we get like those full body like milk chocolate flavors with like sometimes of a sweet caramely sweetness, but we're gonna it's more typical to get those milk chocolate flavors from Latin American coffees, and that's typical to the brew process. And see, in like Indonesia, what's typical is a semi-wash, and with those semi-wash, we're gonna get a lot of those earthy sediment mouthfeels, and that's just because they give it a bath, they pull it out, and then they give it another bath, and that's gonna really impact those the mouthfeel that you get in the coffee.
Nice. Have you ever roasted your own beans or thought about doing that?
I have not, but I've been looking into it.
Yeah.
I want to order some coffee beans.
You could be great at that.
And so what's interesting is the history of Starbucks comes from Peet's Coffee. I don't know if you knew that, and I don't know if you guys knew that either.
I didn't know that.
But yeah.
I didn't know that, no.
And I think it was in 1971. Well, first let's go back a little bit further. In the 1950s is when Peet started importing high quality Arabica beans to America, and so he was the first importer of high quality Arabica beans from Africa.
Neat. Okay.
Yeah, and so that's how Arabica beans became a thing. And then there was 3 founders. I don't have their names pulled up right now, and I can't remember them, but they started Starbucks in Seattle in 1971. And they were inspired by Peet's Coffee and supplying a high-quality Arabica bean. And then they saw the growing demand for high-quality coffee Arabica beans. So that's why they actually started sourcing directly from Pete's Coffee distribution. So back in the day, we actually sourced our coffee directly from Pete's Coffee. So we pretty much are Pete's Coffee back in the day.
Yeah.
And it grew from there. And then we learned that the Yukon blend, a year after the Pike's Place was founded, the founders of Pike's Place created the Yukon blend specifically for a local captain fisherman.
Okay.
And he chose those specific flavors and those specific roasted beans to give like that warm roasty feeling of being in front of a campfire. So when you drink the Yukon blend, you get that roasty, woodsy flavor.
Yeah.
And it gives you even if it's cold, you're still gonna get that roasty flavor.
Okay.
And just those roasty flavors give you the illusion of sitting in front of a campfire. So when you're out on the ocean fishing in the cold, just having that cup of coffee that gives you that roasty feeling is gonna help you combat the cold.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting how they really went into that.
Yeah.
Because when you shiver and you're cold, you're using energy.
Yeah.
And so having that cup of coffee make you feel warm is really important to making sure that you conserve your energy for the work. Because working in that part of the world is dangerous, especially when it's frigid cold. You could succumb to hypothermia and other things. So it's
and if you
really
keep drinking whiskey to stay warm, then you get drunk and fall asleep, and then a bear comes and eats you.
Well, or you fall overboard.
Yeah. Oh, that's true, huh? Ooh. No, thank you.
Yeah, and so
I'll take the coffee.
If you want to serve yourself more coffee, go right ahead, Gavin.
Awesome.
Yeah. All you. And so, what's really cool is the Ethiopia blend that we have in here. So the Ethiopia is the origin of all coffee. So every coffee that you drink can date back to coffee from Ethiopia.
That's great.
The first documented discovery of coffee was in Ethiopia by Aldi the goat herder.
Yes, I love this story.
Yes. So he actually noticed that his goats were getting elated from eating these cherries, and so, like any smart guy, he decided to eat them himself. And he found that he got extra energy.
That was fun.
Yeah. And so he got extra energy, and he's just like, you know what, this is great.
Yes.
And so, I mean, I know you can relate to
I channel my inner goat every chance I get.
That's right.
Yes, and I like to share that energy. Yes.
And then with the Latin American coffee, I love the Latin American coffee because of how it impacts the farmers and the community from Latin America.
Yeah.
Because coffee didn't make its way to Latin America until the 1700s, and there was a lot of stuff going on during that time period with agricultural science and like a downslide in certain things. So you have a lot of crops that's not being demanded anymore, like bananas and stuff. And so a lot of people who relied on certain crops that aren't selling anymore because these certain crops are being grown in other parts of the world, where at one time, that was the only place where you got that specific resource. Now that they're growing in other parts of the world, people aren't requiring it from you. Yeah. So these people in Latin America, they saw like a decline in sales of the local crops that they were normally growing.
Okay.
And so coffee made its way to Latin America in the 1700s.
Yeah.
And in certain parts of the area it didn't thrive, but in like Nicaragua and Guatemala it really thrived because you have those rich volcanic soils, the lush forests, so you have those foliages coming down. So it really supplied that nitrogen in the soil to really feed those plants to make like the lush, rich coffee that it is today.
I love coffees that come from high altitudes. Something about it's been there typically the Latin American coffees, but like the Cassis Cielo.
Okay.
That one for some reason, and that's got that volcanic ash you're talking about. It's got the high altitude.
Absolutely.
And the mixtures in the soils, like something about that coffee, it just makes it so balanced. Like, and this here, I tell you not, like the last cup I just poured right now tastes exactly the same as the first cup.
Absolutely.
It's consistent all the way through. I wasn't prepared for that. I was expecting it to be stronger towards the end, and I'd have to stop drinking it. That's why I put my cup down. I was like, I don't want to get.
So another thing about that too, what's probably happening with that is when you pour the whole French press into a single cup of coffee, or like into a single cup, and I get this a lot too, where it starts to get intense towards the cup of the coffee because it's a French press, and you start to see a lot of those sediments at the cup of your coffee. You get like that mud. With this, because we're doing like small single serves, we're actually, a lot of the sediment is actually down on the bottom of our French press right now.
Oh, so it's not getting into our cup.
Yeah, while we're serving ourselves. I mean, we're still seeing a little bit of the sediment.
I got a little bit. It's okay. It's like a good
in there,
amount.
but that's like, that's required to give us that flavor.
Yeah.
But we're not going to see that intense mud at the cup of our coffee.
Yeah.
And then what's going on here is we're not still brewing our coffee right now. Like, there's water in here and the grinds are down here, but the coffee and the water has been separated, so we're not really getting that much flavors being added to our coffee.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
So
good.
even though the grinds are still in there and the water's still in there, we're not over brewing right now, because it has been primarily a little bit of flavors are still being released, but not enough to impact the coffee unless it's unless you're letting it sit until it gets cold.
Yeah.
So
it just goes to show, like, the best French press sometimes is the most simple one.
Absolutely.
I think because something looks fancy or because it looks expensive or it's shiny, that is going to give me a better cup of coffee. But the reality is that right there is good. Just listen to me. I'm caffeinated. I feel great. I'm ready to start my day.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's so fun.
Awesome.
Cool, man.
Well, thank you, Gavin, for joining me in today's coffee tasting.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you guys for joining today on today's coffee tasting, and everyone thank Gavin for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
This has been fun.
Absolutely.
Cool.
All right. That is it for today's coffee tasting. This Tuesday, what was I was going to be doing the Ethiopia this Tuesday, and we're going to be just talking about some events that happen here in America, because it's Black History Month.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk a little bit about the stories of Black history, and we're going to drink an Ethiopia blend that's dedicated to like the communities in Africa and stuff. And so we're going to learn a little bit about that. So that's what Tuesday is all about. And then next Friday, we're going to have Mark as a special guest, and we're going to be doing Komodo Dragon, his favorite blend. And we're going to be learning a little bit about what goes into Komodo Dragon and how that coffee came about. Thank you guys for joining. Have a great day.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you guys so much for joining. Actually, this guy passing by, he's the one that mentioned the Greek coffee. I'm going to grab him and ask him, hey, what was that coffee called?
Fredo Espresso.
Fredo Espresso. Okay, we're doing a little coffee seminar here. Seminar.
Okay.
I want to figure out what that is.
Fredo Espresso. So what's Fredo Espresso?
It's a Greek drink. It's like a few ice cubes, light roast espresso with a little bit of like cold cream.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Got it.
Cool.
And that's like a Greek originated drink? Okay, I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, it's
definitely.
Cool. Super good.
Awesome.
Right on.
Yeah.
I was just telling him about that today. I was like, oh, I wish I could see that guy again. Yeah. Hey.
Thank you guys for joining. If you guys liked today's video, go ahead and hit the link down below. That's going to be a list of videos that I have done in the past of coffee tastings. The link above is just going to be a video that YouTube thinks that you might like. Have a good day, guys.